animal welfare friend, Peter Egan, actor, Downton Abbey, etc., and tireless animal welfare campaigner. And my old friend from back in Operation Ark days, really pleased to have him on the show as well, Pen Farthing. Welcome, Peter, and hi, Pen, how are you doing?
Hey Kevin, how you doing? Good to see you again.
Good to see you. You've got a book out about Operation Ark, which Peter and I felt played a very, very small part in. So it took it all back. But let's talk about that in a little while. As I just laid out today, there it is. Yeah, don't worry, Peter. We'll do the plugging.
Thank you, Peter.
We will do it. Don't we'll do it properly in just a little while. I watched the film today. I just laid out the details. Perhaps I could go to you first, Pen, because I know you've been into Ukraine, haven't you?
Yeah, many times. Yeah.
So just try to explain what's going on. As I said, more than 1 million household pets, dogs, cats, etc., made homeless, now roaming the streets. There's a mission going on. These two remarkable people, Dan Fine, a damn fine man, if I could put it that way, from Canada, and Christina, a local Ukrainian, are doing their best for this vaccination and sterilization program, hoping to vaccinate and sterilize 500,000 dogs in 4 years, but it's a difficult thing to do. Just try to lay out what it's like in Ukraine right now in terms of these poor stray dogs and poor stray cats and the people trying to do something about it. I've got some clips of the film which we'll play along the way, but just tell the story if you can, Pen.
Yeah, I mean, you got people like Christina, who's obviously central in that film, who's working tirelessly to, help support and, the neutering, the spaying and the vaccination of so many dogs and cats. You've just got to go to the east of Ukraine where sadly the fighting is intense. And people have had no choice but to evacuate, but they couldn't take all of their animals with them. And so, as you rightly said earlier on just now, there are so many dogs and cats that are now left unchecked and they're just breeding. And we have had outbreaks of rabies now in Ukraine, which for most people, if they're bitten by a rabid dog, it's fatal. They haven't got access to the vaccine. So for us and the groups that are working out in Ukraine, it's highly important that we're actually supporting the people of Ukraine by neutering and spaying these stray dogs, by vaccinating them against rabies, and trying to do what we can to control that stray dog and cat population across the country. Otherwise, they'll be fighting not only the Russians, but a serious outbreak of rabies, which, as I said, is fatal.
Indeed. As I say, we've got some clips from this remarkable, heartbreaking but remarkable film, War Tales, Tails. See what they did there? Let's have a look at the first clip. Well, that's just a taste of it. As I say, the film is harrowing, but also remarkable. Peter, we saw there, that was in the south, I think, it was the bursting of a hydro dam, which flooded huge areas. And you saw those poor dogs, their families either drowned or gone, just standing on sort of remaining steps, about to be consumed by the water. I mean, this is not just an animal catastrophe, as Penn was just explaining. This has got the potential to spread into being a serious human catastrophe as well.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, I mean, as we know, Ukrainians, like the Brits, are huge animal lovers. Some of them have multiple pets, and as you've already mentioned, that abandoned dogs left to their own devices can have 3 litters a year, puppies, and cats 5. So, the problem just multiplies in the most dreadful way. I had the great pleasure of meeting both Christina and Dan Fine 2 weeks ago when I went to see the premiere of War Tales, which, as you said, is the most remarkable film. And I particularly was taken just by one sentence at the beginning by the writer Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, who said that we are responsible forever for all animals that we tame. Now, of course, I mean, that is a great, great sentiment, and we all try. I mean, Penn is a great example of this, of trying to do the best he can for animals in a war zone. But you know, the public need to get behind the people who are working so hard in these places, like Penn and Nauzad, and like Christina and Dan, who are working there. I think they want support by people to Google the film and watch the film and find a way by tracking it of supporting the work that they do, which is, of course, remarkable and selfless. Christina is the most remarkable person.
Yeah, there's a Q code thing at the end of the film, which I think you can scan and help. So everybody should do what Peter says. Have a look at this film, War Tales, Tails, and do what you can to help. Now, there's a remarkable woman, a local woman called Christina. She's got one of those Ukrainian second names. I'm not going to embarrass her by mispronouncing it, but here she is in action doing her work.
She is definitely a woman of action. She's like G.I. Jane with a great sense of humor, but also very, very serious about getting the job done, and nothing stands in her way.
Christina, you're crazy. And you are a hero.
Penn, she's a remarkable woman. You're a remarkable man, by the way. We'll get onto your Nauzad work as well. But no one knows more about how hellish it is for animals in the field of war, because, of course, you were in Afghanistan. You had your animal compound there, the Nauzad compound, and, of course, famously rescued all those animals and got them back to Britain. But just try to sum up. You know, I mean, these are domestic dogs, you know, but loved by families. Suddenly they're on the streets. It is a very heartbreaking spectacle, isn't it? You've seen it up close.
Yeah, it is. I mean, and a lot of Ukrainians will actually, because there are just so many street dogs, because the TMVR programs have only really just begun in the years just prior to the war outbreaking. And you'll see just people who actually feed the street dogs to ensure they've got food and their well-being's taken care of. And then when the war came, those people had to evacuate, but they couldn't obviously take those stray dogs with them. And so you've got thousands upon thousands of dogs that are now left behind with nobody to care for them. And you'll get volunteers, people like Christina, who go into these areas to ensure they're feeding the dogs, to start these neutering programs, to start vaccinating them against rabies. And it's just amazing courage to see these people who are so dedicated and caring to actually go in there and do this. It's amazing me to this day.
Sorry, Peter,
it's worth mentioning as well, Kev, that if I can, that in fact, Christina actually contracted rabies from touching a puppy who had it and touching her eye in her tear duct. She contracted rabies. Luckily, she's vaccinated and inoculated against it. So she got rabies doing her work. She also got a piece of shrapnel shot through her calf. So, you know, she really is in danger all of the time. It is remarkable what she's doing.
And I mentioned for Dan Fine, who's a Vancouver guy, who basically is just a dog lover and had a neighbour who hailed from Ukraine, told him about these poor dogs in Ukraine, and just went and dedicated his life to helping them. And he's gone right to the front. And he produced this film, and I think wrote it as well. So remarkable people, but let's be honest. Penn, perhaps. I mean, they are fighting an uphill battle. It's hard to see that they'll be able to contain this. I mean, there's footage, for example, of a compound for something like 3,000 dogs near Kiev. And the people there just say this is no more than a place to put them. We cannot control them. So Penn, it's a kind of what can be done to get on top of this situation, because these people are doing brilliant work, but there's not enough of them, not enough money. What can be done to help?
Yeah, I mean, sadly, yeah, it always comes down to the money. It's people donating, because we've got to tackle this problem at source. So it's got to be the humane neutering and spaying. It's got to be the vaccinations of those dogs. Once they get to a shelter, as you rightly just said, it's too late. We need to be getting those dogs that are out on the streets, because most dogs at shelters, they're already neutered and spayed. So, that's not the issue. So that's what we're trying to do. And we encourage people to support the work of groups that are working in this field. And it's not just Ukraine, it's across the world, where you've got so many stray dogs that need to be humanely neutered and spayed and vaccinated.
Yeah. And Christina and Dan and the gang, they go around with these sort of pipes and they sort of dart them, so it's kind of anesthetizes them, and then they gather them up and give them the sterilization and the vaccinations. But as I say, the numbers compared with the number of dogs they don't get to. Don't forget as well that these dogs, and Dan and Christina and these brave people, they're moving among minefields. And by the way, Penn, another credit to this film. I mean, I don't know about war. I'm sure Peter is also not that experienced at it. But at the beginning of the film, they show a lot of bombs and missiles hitting bridges and things. It really brings home to you just the fierce, the awesome horror of these missiles and bombs when they hit the ground and hit their targets. And they also tell about this thing about the Russian double tap. They'll hit a target, a hospital or something, and then they'll leave it enough time for the rescue workers to get there and the police and everybody, and then they'll hit again. It's not a nice thing, is it, war?
No, not at all. And the places that we've been to over in Kramatorsk, in the far east of the country, there are whole towns and villages that have just been wiped off the map. And as you said, having served in the military, I've never seen anything like that. It's just just wanton destruction of everything. And to me, I just can't comprehend it. And people still are there now today trying to, survive, because they've got nowhere else to go. They can't go to the west of the country because there's nowhere for them to live there. So they actually stay and try and survive in these towns that are just being systematically destroyed by Russia. It's horrific.
And a lot of them are very traumatized. They're shaking and they're very nervous, as you can imagine. Some of them apparently literally are clinically depressed because they've lost their families, the humans that used to look after them. But I'm going to just play something. Something of a happy ending. It's only a minor thing, but it's worth showing this because this is a tribute to the work of Christina, who, apart from putting herself at risk, as you've just explained, Peter, she has her own, these are all the dogs, she has her own compound and she rehomes them. And these are the happy dogs of war who've been found happy homes. Mostly in Ukraine. There are parts of Ukraine, which Odessa in particular, which are pretty untouched. So these are some of the happy stories. I just thought, there, look at that. It's nice, isn't it? These were all dogs that were made homeless, bombed out, lost their families. They've now got new homes, all thanks to this remarkable woman, Christina. So a little bit of a happy ending, at least for some dogs. That's Dan there, cradling a little puppy. He too is just a hero, just a hero. All right, before we go, let's talk about our own history, shall we? I know we only played a small part, but I remember back in the Operation Ark days, every night we'd start going to you in Kabul, Peter here. We'd have a whole gallery of characters, and you did it. Penn, amazing. You got that plane together and you got the animals out. Show us the book, Peter. Come on. There it is, Operation Ark by Penn Farthing. We've got a proper copy of it here. Well, what do you say in the book then, Penn? Tell us what we can expect when we read your excellent work.
Well, firstly, I need to say, Kevin, you didn't play a small part. You played a big part. So you helped us get that message out. Yeah, without your support, we wouldn't have been able to reach the people who actually donated to pay for that aircraft and to get the message that we needed to get our people and our animals out. And so that's the story of the book, really. It's not really, a political kind of minefield. It's more of what happened on the ground and how we put it all together. and how those 67 people and the 171 animals actually got into the airport, how we got out, how we got them to Pakistan, how we got everybody back to the UK. So that's what the story is, and there's a little bit of personal heartache along the way. But it just tells the truth, the facts as they happened.
I remember it well. I mean, there was that, because you would go to the airport, wouldn't you, with all those poor animals in their cages, and then they wouldn't let you in, and you'd have to go back to the compound. And your wife flew out earlier, didn't she? And you stayed there. I mean, it was like back here. I'm sure Peter will confirm. I mean, we were chewing our nails. I mean, it was white.
It was amazing. If I could just
Please
chuck
do,
in.
Peter. Yeah.
I had the great privilege of sitting in on Zoom calls for about a month every single night of the week while Penn was in Kabul organizing this. And there was a team back in the UK who were organizing the logistics, how to deal with it in terms of PR, how to deal with it in terms of fundraising. It was a remarkable teamwork machine that worked absolutely beautifully. And we did day by day go through the highs and the lows that Penn and his wonderful team and the animals were going through almost minute by minute. It's an absolute thriller. And I'm so pleased, Penn, that you've written the real story here in Operation Ark so that everyone can understand precisely what happened to you and your team and the great heroism you showed, and also your team, and the fantastic spade work that went on back here in the UK.
Yeah, I remember the nervousness with which we approached the beginning of the show every night. We used to start at 7 o'clock. Were we going to get the Zoom link through to Penn Farthing? But you got those animals out, and you got a lot of the staff out as well, didn't you? How are the animals doing? How are your colleagues that work at NowZ adapting now to life back in this country?
Yeah, so the animals are all rehomed. A lot of them already had owners to go to. And we did it. Obviously, those that didn't, we adopted them. They're now living their lives. They're forever homes. So we were so chuffed with that. But also with the staff, bringing them back. And I think the best way I can sum it up is we had a little bit of a reunion this year. We got all the staff back together down here in Devon.
Great.
There were some of the young girls there. They were about 6, 7 years old. And they came up to me and they're speaking in these, because they now live up in Liverpool.
Oh, they got Liverpool accents, Scouse accents.
They've got these proper Liverpudlian accents, and they're talking to me though in perfect English.
That's great. I mean,
I couldn't really talk to them before, and now they're just there, and it's amazing. The opportunities those girls have now got is, we couldn't have wished for more.
And that's why you stayed behind for the animals and for your staff, because had you have left, they probably would have been targeted by the Taliban as collaborators with the likes of you. So that's why you had to get them out. But anyway, looking back on it, those were remarkable days, and you two were astonishing during that time. And listen, so everybody go out and buy Operation Ark by Penn Farthing in all the usual outlets, and maybe come on again soon, Penn. Great to
I'd love to. Thank you.
Great to hook up with you again. And Peter, thank you very much. We'll do it again next week. Thank you. Peter Egan and Penn Farthing there. That was astonishing, if you don't mind me saying so.